you find adventure at the click of a button, or from the turn of a page, or the casting of a die. Join your hosts, Coniff and Shiloh, on an unforgettable journey. Questing the Multiverse.
Episode... no idea, honestly.
I have no idea.
And you know what?
Look it up.
Time is
Who
all
cares?
Relative anyway. And we missed last week because, well, we're going to get into that. But in general, Shiloh, how are you on this fine? It's officially summer, I think, in the, I don't know if it's officially, like, you know, there's always that Gregorian standard based on the calendar, like this day is the first day of summer. I don't know if that's happened yet.
Solstice or whatever. Yeah,
It might as well be summer.
That's in June.
Well, that's like the longest day of the year, right?
Yeah,
June 21st.
In Tennessee, summer starts. Summer starts in, I don't know, early May.
Right now, yeah.
So
currently summer. It's been lovely out. I don't know.
Yeah, same here.
So I was talking with one of my coworkers who's from Colorado, and if you've ever been to Colorado, listener or Shiloh, it's the summers are not humid. And you might live wherever you're listening to this on the coast. And so you don't really get the type, unless you're in Florida or like one of the Carolinas. Mm-hmm. But like humidity in the Midwest is pretty suffocating in the summer. It can be. And then mixed in with that are just hordes of mosquitoes, Shiloh's favorite insect, cicadas, whatever. But anyway, this coworker was like, man, I moved to Missouri and just felt like I was breathing through like a straw, you know, in the summer just because of how humid it is. And I've noticed that it's starting. I went on a long walk today and it was just comfortable enough to where I didn't feel, you know, like I was dying. But it was like, you know, high 70s, maybe 80, low 81, whatever. And it was great. So summer, as far as Questing the Multiverse is concerned, is officially here. Except for our dear friend Tempest, who now it's winter, I suppose, because you're in New Zealand.
Yeah, it's got to be difficult.
Yeah, your toilets drain the opposite direction as well.
Yeah.
So, but how are you, Shiloh? Gaming aside, just we haven't chatted in 2 weeks effectively because of things that we'll get into. But
besides struggling with my headphone cord, I'm pretty good. Yeah, we got our last table done.
Nice.
And so that's been a kind of monkey off the back, I suppose. And I have a extended weekend this weekend, so it's been nice. Been productive and semi-relaxing so far. So a couple more days of that, and I'm back to it with the old restaurante. But yeah, it's other than that, pretty good. Gaming aside, so
yeah. I had a question I was going to ask you, and then I totally forgot it. So I think what we should do is whip out your deck of many things.
Oh, okay. My deck with an E. Okay.
This is a family show.
Pick a card. Any card.
That lightning and thunder sound is definitely part of our experiences the past 2 weeks in the Midwest. It has rained more days than it has not, I think.
Today was beautiful, but yesterday, mostly rain, thunderstorms here and there.
Tornado warnings here and there.
Tornado warnings, yeah.
If you haven't listened to it yet, listener, the last No Cube Zone or Questing Multiverse board game episode with Jordan, I got a tornado warning in the middle of recording, and as we do, we just kept on going. It was all fine, but it was great. It was just typical Midwestern things, I guess. You know, it beats having tornado or hurricanes, earthquakes, wildfires. We just have a apocalyptic
Dragons.
funnel of wind that comes every now and then.
Oops.
Dragons. Yeah, that's Portland, I think, or somewhere up in Oregon.
No, I think Portland has other things going on. Okay, so all right, let me shuffle the old deck. D-E-C-K.
That's right.
All you dirty birds out there. Get my
And I sip on my tea.
pseudo southern dialect is misinterpreted. Okay. So, let's see what we get this
I don't
day.
remember the ones we've gotten already. I'll probably know when you ask the question, but
Well, we didn't that one time, so.
that's true until we
Ooh, I
answered
don't
it again.
Oh. No, we haven't gotten this one. Flame.
Ooh, creepy.
Yeah.
What is that? A
it's got-
dragonborn? Satan? I can't
No,
tell.
it looks like a man, woman with a demon head on it. It's basically
So
old
Satan.
Greg. Yeah, it's basically old Greg
Wow.
with a
As
devil
Owen
head.
Wilson would say.
Wow.
Okay.
All right.
What is the flames question?
The flames question is, which mythological creature would be the worst roommate?
I guess if we don't pick like what I would consider a non-sentient one, which would be like a griffin or, just a beast, right? Probably a gorgon. Isn't that what Medusa is? Whatever creature Medusa is.
I was going to say Medusa too.
You just can never look at her.
Yeah.
or him. I guess there's male, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Hey, can you hand me that?
And then it's over.
Yeah,
and then
you're stoned.
she's got to find a new roommate, pay that rent. Maybe that and a siren, because you would get real sick of the singing all the time.
Oh, God, yeah. That'd be bad.
And they'd constantly have a plumber over because you'd have water everywhere.
Yeah. I think Medusa would have to win. You couldn't have any mirrors up. Like, even if you did wear like a blindfold, so you'd have to be kind of, I guess it could be doable.
I guess
suppose?
it depends too, because some are animated or cartoon or whatever, maybe even not, versions of that creature, all they have to do is hide their snakes, snake hair, I guess, and then it doesn't do anything. Maybe maybe I'm mixing two different creatures up. I don't know.
Yeah. No.
But no mirrors. You'd have to effectively live two different times of the day.
Yeah. Even if you did wear a blindfold, I guess then the mirror thing wouldn't matter. So, yeah, it would be weird though. It'd be pretty bad. I'm sure there are worse out there, like a vampire or something like that. But
Yeah, but Asterion, that wouldn't be too bad, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Although, for those that have played Baldur's Gate 3 very early on, you do wake up with him at your neck.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. So werewolf, that would be bad too. Oof. How about
they're just like, all right, I'm going to leave. This, you know what this reminds me of, though? The Wednesday show on Netflix, which I guess they're filming or something the season 2 currently. But I really enjoyed that show. One, what's her name? I want to say Olivia Rodriguez, but that's the singer chick.
Kind of looks like Jenna Ortega.
Jenna Ortega did a fantastic job, and the entire cast was great. But it was definitely more of like it felt like gothic Harry Potter, I guess, in a way.
Yeah.
And that's whatever. There were no wizards. So, but it was entertaining. I enjoyed it.
I enjoyed it.
So Gorgon,
So
not on my list of roommates, I guess.
yeah, have to rule them out.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Shiloh. What have you been up to? Why don't you tell our listeners what you have been playing, what your interests are? There was a news thing we could have talked about last week about Xbox axing a bunch of studios, namely the one that did Hi-Fi Rush. That made the news. Not great. Who knows what the business reason is behind it? I know that Hi-Fi Rush was like a gem amongst coal as far as the type of stuff that the studios that got axed were putting out.
Xbox is going through some tough times.
Very much so.
Whenever I pull up my feed, it's some sort of is it time to finally give up on Phil Spencer and all this stuff? And I'm like, oh man, this is not looking good. I know they close Arcane Studios.
Yep, the ones that did Bethesda's the vampire game.
Redfall, which is evidently getting an offline mode before they close the server. I don't like it. It's like, whoa.
We never played that, or did you try? I never did.
We Redfall?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we tried to review it, and it wasn't. It was just kind of
because
unplayable.
you tried to hop in, and I never even played it. It was.
I played through the first 30 minutes, I think, and it was like, okay, not anything special. It was just disappointing.
Yeah, but that's the state. I mean, Xbox, as you said, it's. Not great things are going on with Xbox right now. Gaming is in a weird place anyway, I think. And we talked about it earlier on this year about like that funk that you get. Is it safe to say, at least for yourself, that Destiny 2 has kind of brought you out of that funk, since that's kind of what you've been playing a lot?
Yeah, for sure. And then, this coming month to 2 months, we've got, at least I've got, and I guess you do too. I'm not going to speak for you, but I've got Hellblade 2 comes out this Tuesday. That I'm looking forward to that. I don't know what it's going to be, but we'll see. So regardless, I'm looking forward to it, and have been for a while.
Yeah.
If you've been listening to any of our podcasts, you can definitely count on that.
I think I might play that on Xbox as well.
I have it downloaded, pre-downloaded.
Yeah. Well, and also if I'm sitting here playing it and then a kid walks in, that's not going to go over well. But the TV, at least, and the Xbox, I can see when a kid's coming and be like, pause. And it's not that it's anything like crazy, but it's definitely, at least the first one, there was some frightening images and just intense things.
Yeah, there's some stuff that you wouldn't want a child to see. Nothing too grotesque, but scary. That's for
certainly
sure.
Scary.
Terrifying.
You were going to say what else we've got, which is the Final Shape, Dawn Trail.
The Final Shape, obviously, for me anyway, and probably for a lot of people that are looking forward to that. That is the biggest question mark. That's the big wild card, I think, out of the 3 games that I'm about to mention. Well, actually 4. And then we've got Shadow of the Erdtree, the Elden Ring expansion, coming at the end of June. And then we've got Dawn Trail, roughly, I think they move their dates according to Shadow of the Erdtree.
Yeah.
Something.
I think Yoshi P did something to that effect.
So, yeah, there's all that's coming out this summer. And then what is The War Within comes out in October, but in October? For a while.
Yeah, because that's when Dragonflight was. That's why I'm like, it's good that it's coming out in the fall. I do want to. I do want to play it. I want to try. I mean, I've never played a WoW expansion when it's released, just to see what that experience is. But it's nice that there's going to be, as far as I know, this break between July when Dawn Trail comes out, and then The War Within.
Yeah. I think at least for me, the pacing is going to be pretty good from what I what I hope for gaming for me anyway. It's I'm kind of at that point where I've done almost as much prep work for the final shape, and I've done a lot of prep work for trying to catch up with Destiny 2, which I love. I don't know why I love this, but I love prepping in games for expansions. It's kind of, and I don't know what your take on this is, but for me, it's almost like the holiday season. So leading up to the holidays is almost as exciting as the actual holidays itself, especially as an adult, I think.
I 100% agree with that. I think I need to kind of sit on it more as you're applying this to expansions. But when it comes to holidays, like October, the beginning of October to the end of the year is great. And it's mostly because of the periods between each of the 3 holidays. The beginning of October to Halloween, the 31st, that's more exciting than Halloween. Thanksgiving's kind of different because there's no, at least in America, there's not a lot of build up to Thanksgiving.
Yeah, it's just Thanksgiving and
all the build up is happening is Christmas still. But then, yeah, I agree with you. The Christmas build up is great. Just the weeks leading up to it, all the stuff, all the Christmas traditions that you do. I 100% agree with that.
Yeah. And I generally go into expansions like that. It's the prep work leading up to the expansion, so you feel ready. You don't have to run around and do a bunch of stuff that you really didn't want to do, or that's taking away from the story element, or being able to complete it on legendary by trying to overcompensate for that and trying to get your power, et cetera, et cetera. This is all Destiny related right now, but this can go for any game and go for ESO or WoW or anything.
Yeah.
But, trying to get as much materials as you can before, and then figuring out, this is going away and I need to make sure I've got this gun and this gun, or, in ESO, it was, trying to get all your, making sure you had Ancestor Silk so you could, gold out your, the upcoming expansions, new dungeon gear and all that kind of stuff. But for some reason, I love that. And maybe it's just because I like prep work. I think if I had my druthers in a restaurant, I would probably just be a prep cook. I would just cook and cut all day long and be happy as a clam.
So question for you then, regards to restaurants in this. And it's the same concept here, right? Because like you, the prep work, especially when you're currently into a game and really playing it and diving into it, that anticipation leading up to that expansion, that is the best moment. The expansion could be great, but that release of anticipation, it's never going to, it's the falling action, if you will. And so we experienced that with Guild Wars 2 with the Secrets of the Obscure. I experienced it with RuneScape and Necromancy, the newest skill last year, around the same time as Secrets of the Obscure. But as far as restaurants are concerned, do you think you would have more fun working in a classic Texas barbecue joint than a regular restaurant? Because that is 90% of it is the prep work of putting the meat on the smoker and then doing all the prep. And then you've got 2 or 3 people at the counter slicing it, for the lunch rush. And then once you're done, it's gone. But then the rest of the day is all the prep work leading up to it. You don't think so?
Well, I mean, something of that nature, but not necessarily a barbecue joint. But yeah, I get what you're saying. And that's actually what I've kind of thought about trying to open down the road, be something where I could almost single-handedly do a lot of the prep work, like either a bakery with kind of almost like a counter, like a deli, like a New York deli done in a southern atmosphere or something like that. Less a-hole-ish and kind of more just. Have you ever been in New York
more
deli?
southern hospitality?
Not exactly a pleasant experience.
Well, southern.
It's funny because you have to go in with all right, this is. you have to know exactly what you want, and you got to just say it real fast, and then they leave you alone. But if you stall at all,
it's weakness.
You're dead in the water. But yeah, I would personally like that a lot, where I could just zone out and just cook and bake and whatever I did, and then, you know, either just had a quick little, just send it out the door, and then it's all done. You just kind of, I don't know. That's just me. It's probably has to do with some introversion as well. But
yeah.
Anyway, all that crap aside, yeah, it's just I just love doing that. People would just say it's just work, you know. You got to go around and gather all these bounties, and I just like being efficient, I suppose. It's just sort of what I do.
Well, it gives you a task to do each time. It's like a checklist.
Yeah. And I love that in Guild Wars too. I always had, you know, kind of this, either I would never write it down because that would be technically work, but I have it in my head like, okay, I need to go to this and do that, and then I would have to look up stuff, and it was just always kind of this fun little mini game of min-maxing and being efficient as you could be and trying to prioritize your time. And I think that's why I enjoy that kind of stuff. But anyway, but yeah, most of my time has just been on Destiny 2, and it's been a lot of fun coming back. And yeah, we've got I think we finally convinced our friend Reaper, who's been playing Final Fantasy with us, although I haven't been in Final Fantasy in a few weeks, but
yeah,
I've been in Destiny 2, and just kind of waiting on
all these expansions.
When the itch will go back and actually finish out my leveling of my other classes, my Astrologian, and what else was I working on? I don't even remember at this point. Machinist, I think. Yeah, the
you did just start that one, or like start whatever a month ago, whatever it was.
So just getting those guys, the jobs, guys, just one guy, girl in the game. But anyway, getting those jobs up to where I can go back into Shadowbringers and hopefully remember everything that happened up until that point and continue onwards. So, but there is a level of fatigue with that game for me, and that it's just so much story and so much it's just like I just kind of want to play the game. But
another cutscene. Another cutscene.
Yeah, another I mean, it's great, but it will fatigue you. I think for anybody, at least should kind of just take a step back for a minute and just. Although I'd love to get caught up before Dawn Trail, I just don't see that happening at all. So that I'm looking forward to it, but at the same time, it's hard to look forward to something that you know is at least a country away and you're on foot. You know, it's like, you can't take a plane, you got to walk. So it's like, oh, okay. But, yeah, that's really about it. But and my brother, the great Captain Carrot, has returned to Destiny 2. He
is he in the clan?
It. I don't know. He's not in the clan. Captain Carrot needs no clan.
He is his own clan.
Yeah, he is his own clan. So, yeah, I haven't bothered him with it, but it was kind of fun getting him through that. But this may segue into what you were maybe going to talk about, but
I've got a list.
It was interesting to... He was just utterly confused. And I was trying to...
We'll have to table that when we get to the Destiny stuff, because I'm curious.
Okay.
First, when's the last time he's played that?
Beyond Light, really.
Okay. So decent.
He got through most of that. I don't know how. I don't know to what extent, but he was so confused that he just made a new character, and then I think that made him even more confused. So it was.
We'll get there.
It's kind of like, I guess when you really think about it, Destiny 2 is very, very akin to WoW, in this regards, and that there's no real clear path. And I guess a lot of MMOs are like this, especially in their later days or later stages. And it's to be expected. There's just so much stuff going on. ESO is probably like this too. That if there's no linear path to go on, which makes the game, in my opinion, great, but at the same time, if you're a new player and you don't really know exactly what you're doing, you haven't done any of the research to know what the best course of action is, and you could just be lost in space is what he really was. So I had to go kind of yank him out and kind of explain, okay, this is what you probably should do. This is where you need to go first. This is what, and he was like, oh, thanks. I didn't know any of this. So it's not very clear in the game now that you don't immediately go into the Red War campaign. And I mean, they immediately throw you into things, but they immediately throw you into the Lightfall campaign right off the gate, even if you don't own Lightfall. And it's basically a little marketing ploy like, hey, here's a little bit of Strand. Isn't this fun? And then they yank you back out and say, well, you don't own any of this after the first couple of missions. You're like, but
thanks.
But I really wanted to talk to Nimbus. I don't know why you'd ever say that, but
We'll get to that in our Destiny bit. Yeah. But I have a list of what I've been doing and why we canceled last week. So last week was Mother's Day, so that's part of it. But the other big thing is we finally bought a house. And so 1 million signatures later, selling my soul in 20 different ways later to purchase said house. We've got a closing date that's coming in June. And it's now in the hurry up and wait stage.
Nice.
So, pretty excited about that. What's unfortunate is that
comes at all the things that I just mentioned that are going on. Now you have to deal with the house.
I think I'll be good by the time mid June, right? Yeah. Hopefully. But the thing is, like, for the people watching on YouTube, like, this background has been my office setup for the past 5 months, because at January and December, we rearranged our whole house, got rid of a ton of stuff, redid my whole office, everything. And now I got to take it all apart. And I'm not looking forward to that, because I spent an entire weekend getting this whole thing put, and all these bookshelves, everything set up the way I like it. Yeah.
How long have you lived in that apartment?
7 years. So it's been a long time. It's just ironic that we're like, if we're going to be here for a while, let's rearrange everything, make it more efficient, change the office, and then surprise, here we are. But it's for the best. And the kids will have a backyard to run around in. It'll just be, in general, a better arrangement, and happy about that. So, as far as this show is concerned, the Questing the Multiverse will go on. But as you've probably been aware, listener, we march, that's the one, march to the beat of our own drum. We're not really bound by any investors or sponsors or anything. We are
except for House Wood Design.
Except for House Wood Design and Neo Cafe in New Zealand, in Wellington, New Zealand. With the joking aside, Shiloh and I kind of make the decisions and go from there. And this is designed to be our, end all be all playground.
That's sandbox.
Playground. Yeah. Sandbox. So there's going to be a few weeks in June where we're probably not going to have episodes. And then there'll probably be a few of those in July as well, because of vacations and stuff. So the summer's going to be hit or miss, but it is what it is. If you love us, you won't.
We're sorry.
Well, yeah, I guess we're sorry, but we'll be off and on. So anyway, that's sort of the work that needed to be done. Let's talk games. I have played 5, I think, as far as video games go.
It's 4 more than me. Good job.
Yeah. Dead Cells, I still putz around. I go through, try runs. I'm on the second boss cell, and it's very difficult. But again, these sort of roguelite games are kind of open-ended. You play them. I enjoy the collecting and the unlocking of things, and so it scratches those itches. But I'll go through periods where I play them a bunch and then I don't play them at all. And I think I'm leaving the play them a bunch phase and moving into the not playing them at all phase. Not just because of the house, but just in general. So the next game is Fortnite. One of, good old Fortnite. One of my good old college friends has been really diving in, and this is a way for me and him to continue hanging out and stuff. So the current Fortnite season ends this Thursday, and the next season starts then on Friday, whatever day it lands on. The news this time is that Fortnite and Fallout are collaborating, and so there's going to be some sort of Fallout crossover in Fortnite. I guess this season is a post-apocalyptic themed season anyway, so that could be fun. It's Fortnite, right? It's just the kids love the Lego Fortnite, the survival, and honestly, it's really well done survival game. I really love the Guitar Hero Fortnite. It's a Fortnite festival, and then obviously the Battle Royale is still the thing. It's kind of if I don't, you were saying like with Final Fantasy, which I'm about to get to, if I don't want to just basically watch a show or movie, I might turn my brain off and go to, play Fortnite with my friends. So it is what it is. Final Fantasy 14. I have finally gotten through the entirety of A Realm Reborn. I am now at some point into Heavensward. I've got my samurai quests all the way done up until what's the next expansion? Stormblood, Stormblood. So my samurai is level 60, and I have been just kind of chugging along in that. I did some more Hildebrand quests. That's what I do when I want the comic relief. And without any spoilers, Shiloh, I was very impressed with the end of A Realm Reborn.
Okay. Yeah.
Do you remember much of it? Like those 45-minute long cutscenes?
Yeah.
Very entertaining stuff. And one thing that I got the sense of, and I couldn't quite place which game was the last to give me this. I mean, probably Guild Wars 2. But I really felt like strong emotions towards the event that happens at the end of A Realm Reborn. I'm trying to be as vague as possible. And not for any particular character, just the whole event, like, really kind of caught me off guard, I guess. And the experience of, like, that story building to that point, getting that really long cutscene, and then going into Heavensward, and then getting to see Ishgard and, like, an actual, my first experience in an expansion. Like, it was a very fun and memorable experience. And I said it many, many times to you, to Tempest, probably on the show, back when we did the other episodes in the fall or the winter, about how the beginning of A Realm Reborn really just drags, and there's, it's like, it doesn't seem all that exciting. Well, now I'm feeling that excitement. The Sea of Clouds zone, I really, really enjoy the vibe of that one. Even Western Korthus is really, really neat, just really wintry and that sort of thing. So I've been really enjoying my time in Final Fantasy XIV when I, feel like sitting through some stories and stuff. Eventually, we're going to have to do a discussion, and we'll bring on a guest. We already talked about this other idea of having like a what the perfect MMO talk would be. But I want to do one where we just rank, you and I just rank our top 5 MMOs and why. I think Guild Wars 2 currently is still my number 1. But you know, maybe my life, the things I look for in games have changed. I mean, that, you know, we all know that happens. So who knows what Final Fantasy 14 has up its sleeve the deeper I get into it. Next up is RuneScape, believe it or not, and only because I got the itch last week. I was like, you know what? I believe my character passed its 20-year-old mark sometime this year, and I need to go get my 20-year veteran cape. Why not? And so I log in, just happened to log in, and it's the start of double XP. And in RuneScape world, double XP is like what you live for, because as you can imagine, it's double XP on basically everything, which means leveling faster. And RuneScape is one of the best games for economy as far as I'm concerned. And so almost everything in that game can be sold on the open market. And it's, you know, like an auction house, but you don't get to see all the other auction bids, which I really like. This might be a topic for another time, but in all the games, Final Fantasy 14 is one of them, where when you go to sell stuff on the trading post, the auction house, whatever it is, you can see all the other listings for that item. But then in RuneScape, you don't. When you go to sell an item, it'll pop up with the current market price, and you can adjust that to whatever you want ultimately. But the quick buttons are -5%, -10%, +5%, +10%, or maybe +20. I don't remember. And so you never get to see what the actual other items are currently listed at, which is really nice. You know, won't get too much into it. But because that game revolves around gold and making gold, and anything you do in that game, you go to fish, you can sell that fish to somebody else and make gold. It is almost, you know, like real life, and that everything revolves around the money that you make or, you know, spend. And so double XP is great because everything that, you know, you need to do to level, like this, you know, for instance, herb lore, where you're making potions, you can buy all the ingredients on the Grand Exchange, but they're going to cost a pretty penny, especially when you're trying to get to 100 million XP, which is what I'm going for currently. So anyway, I just happened to be log in to get my cape, found out it's double XP, also found out this was the last month of my Premier membership before it runs out. So I'm like, why not? I've got nothing, you know, better to do when I'm just sitting here watching a show or playing another game. I might as well dive into this. And so with that, those are 4 games. I'm going to go ahead and move us into our Destiny segment to talk about the last one, and then we'll get right into that.
Guardian. Eyes up, Guardian. It worked. You're alive.
I did install Destiny 2 onto my PC. Now, we're going to get into what Shiloh kind of was prefacing earlier with his brother. But one thing I really have to praise Bungie for is the fact that my entire Destiny 2 experience thus far, which is, you know, the Red War, the Osiris DLC, because still don't know what the name of that is. The War...
Curse of Osiris.
Okay. The Warmind DLC, the Tangled Shore, or the Forsaken DLC, all the way up to Witch Queen. entirely done on an Xbox. I, at some point, linked my Steam account, my Steam, my Steam ID to my Bungie ID, to my Xbox ID, all this stuff. I simply installed it via Steam. I loaded in. It took 20 years to load because that's how Destiny 2 always is, or always has been. And what do you know? There are all three of my characters, my Hunter, Warlock, and Titan, all at 1600. No idea what the power level currently is in life, but I can tell you it was not 1600 when I last played, so they automatically boosted my characters. I load into my Hunter. You load in. Actually, you load in at the tower, which was different. And I don't know why that was, rather than my ship. I'm sure if I load in that, because I left in my ship, when I signed off yesterday, I think it was, I was in orbit. But anyway, it loaded me in right in front of Ikora. I didn't talk to her because it was like you pulled off the cover of like an old 1969 Firebird in the garage, and you just had to figure out what all the buttons do and everything. And I figure out how to open the character sheet, and there's all my weapons, all my gear. So praise to Bungie for making a game that is truly crossplay. We've said it time and time again, but that if if Bethesda or ZeniMax allowed us to transfer or even just crossplay, but transfer our ESO account to a PC account, I might consider playing again. But they don't. I'm like holding in a something. I don't know.
A burp cough.
A burp cough. So Bungie, though, has really nailed, for all their other faults that we've talked about before, they really nailed this crossplay thing. And it's anything, if you have an account on the PlayStation, you could go there and play it. It's just the same. And so it's fascinating to me that this is, that is one of its strong suits, is if you were a player on Xbox once upon a time, you've moved to PC, or vice versa. I believe you can just link your accounts and then sign in and voila. Now, I don't know about purchasing all the content. Maybe we'll talk about that in a bit. But the last part I'll touch on before we can kind of continue talking about your brother's experience, because it'll probably be very similar, is, I load into my character. I have like 1,000 things happening. There's shiny flashing things on my armor, my weapons. I go hit S to go down to like the Sparrow and the ship and all these things. I look at the top. I've got everything in collections. There's something to look at. The clan. Then there's this new journey tab. Maybe that was Witch Queen as well, but I don't really remember it.
No, I think they introduced that in Lightfall.
Okay.
The Guardian ranks.
Yes. And so I'm like, I have no idea what this does. So me being me, I'm like, well, the best way to dust off the cobwebs is to actually like go to a planet and shoot a gun. And so I choose Europa just because I think collectively we spent Beyond Light was such a small expansion for how long they kept us there, that Europa, we've been up and down Europa so much. So it was familiar. And so I go to Europa, I'm doing mouse and keyboard, or mouse and Razer Tartarus, so keypad. Works great. I have to, you would adjust to using mouse and keyboard, but I've played plenty of Hell Let Loose or Call of Duty or Fortnite or whatever. Yeah. So I'm used to it now. And I got on my Sparrow after I will say, once I landed on Europa, I spent like 20 minutes figuring out keybinds and everything and remapping things and messing with the settings. I couldn't get the game to play in windowed borderless for some reason, or borderless windowed. So I had to do it was like full screen windowed or it was weird. anyway, I go to some part of Europa and I start shooting things and I'm like, okay, yeah, like it's, in fact, I think I like the feel of combat more on PC just because I can switch to whatever weapon I think quicker. You know, I've got a button for everything rather than it all being on this compacted controller and stuff. So I didn't do much more than that because I will be honest, I was confused and overwhelmed. And part of the problem is too, like, when you are a player of Destiny 2 and you are, as Shiloh has, you know, mentioned, like prepping for something, whether it's a new expansion or, you know, you want to get raid ready, like you've got very specific guns, you're using very specific exotics, you're carrying specific exotics, both armor and weapons. And if you could guess, Shiloh, what do you think was the weapon archetype that my hunter was just fully on board with when I logged in? If you had to guess.
If I remember what was meta.
Yeah, basically in Witch Queen.
Fusion, linear fusions, and probably auto rifles.
You nailed it with the first two. Fusion rifle or linear fusion.
Hand cannons.
So I think my character had Arbalist, another fusion rifle, or a pulse. It might have even been a pulse rifle in the media or the
primary.
No, the primary was Arbalist.
Yeah, kinetic slot Arbalist and
and then the third slot was another heavy linear fusion rifle. So apparently linear fusion rifles were great. And so the problem with this is if I'm just coming back to this, I'm looking also at the other guns in my inventory. As far as primaries go, I remembered like Ostia Striga was there, Crimson, I think, but I think Crimson's there just because of Crucible. I don't remember. Obviously Vex Mythoclast was in my primary slot. Or special weapon, whatever it's called. And then there was, what was a few of the others? A hand cannon, Igneous Hammer. Does that sound right? That was there. And as far as heavies, you know, I know I had Galahorn in my inventory and something else. And then a bunch of exotics, you know, anything from a rocket launcher to, I think there was a glaive somewhere, which would make sense because Witch Queen introduced them. So I'm looking at all this, Shiloh, and I'm like, this is great. So I go to fight, but I run out of ammo almost instantly with Arbalist because, you know, if you haven't played in a while, you do have to manage your ammo when you're doing combat missions, whether strikes or raids or just in general. But then I'm looking at my armor and I'm like, I really have no idea what these stats mean. And they're all like in the 70s range, which I thought was low, but maybe that wasn't low. But maybe they've lost buffs or something. I have quite I think everything was masterworked. Maybe. I don't know. At least a few of the armor pieces had it. So I'm just looking I'm like, I don't know. And it's so hard to just load in and then know what each of these things does. And I think if you highlight over them, it'll tell you. But then it's like keeping track of, okay, well, then that means that on all of my gear, I need to find such and such and such. So I think it's probably beneficial for me to effectively go somewhere and find like what an all around good build is for each of the three classes, the Hunter, Warlock, and Titan, and then just try to find those weapons or armor or stat rolls or whatever. So really that kind of concludes my opening experience of the current state of Destiny 2. I mean, how much different is like the actual content, right? Like it's not going to be, you're still shooting it's still FPS gameplay, but it was, man, that menu is just, It's like a maze. It really is. Or it's like you go to like the Omaha Zoo without a map. You're like, hopefully I see gorillas at some point, but who knows? Just follow the signs or, whatever. And then 3 hours later, you're there. So really that's kind of, I don't know if maybe you had that same experience coming back to it because it'd been a while for you. But yeah,
not as long. I didn't miss an expansion. I just missed out on some seasons. So it's always the hardest thing with any game that's involved, like especially with a game whose meta changes so much. And you would think after playing ESO for 6 years that you would know how to do this, but yeah,
but it's different in FPS games because it never feels like even when we had really good gear and armor, it never felt like we were I never felt like I was powerful. I don't know if that makes sense. Like I always felt like, okay, I guess I feel like I'm doing better.
You felt powerful until you went to Grandmaster Nightfall or you tried, and then you're like, okay, let's take it back a notch, Junior. Yeah. And that's good. That's the way I kind of like the game. It's there was a recent story I think you probably saw when I posted that I guess Bungie was getting a lot of complaints over the new 0 hour mission that they've introduced for Outbreak Perfected. They brought that back to the game,
already got
taken it straight out of the Sunsetted Vault and kind of reintroduced it with a new craftable version of Outbreak, which they've also done with Whisper of the Worm, which were two of the probably more fun, interesting, detailed, although I do remember Thorn's mission being really, really cool. Although it was several different missions.
The lightning submachine gun in that you had a jumping puzzle in the old
Risk Runner.
Yeah, the old wall or something.
Yeah, that's fun too. That's fairly easy compared to Zero Hour and Whisper, but and people were complaining that it's too hard, and Bungie basically responded, well, it's not supposed to be easy. So, and it really, in all honesty, it's about as hard as it was when I went in and I just got confused and couldn't figure it out. I had jumping problems
But we got you Outbreak back in the day, right? And Whisper.
Yeah, Doctor did. Doctor and I went through finally, like the man has good patience, and so do you.
Really does.
with mine. But eventually we got through it. And the blueberry, which if you don't know, everyone, that's what you call looking for grouper in
randoms.
In Destiny 2 is a blueberry, but the blueberry with us was completely lost, and we just had to kind of push forward. But luckily, and I didn't know this was a thing back then, I thought you had to be in the boss area to get the actual drop, but that's not the case. And he actually got the drop and thanked us both, but it was hard to do that with two people. And well, really, I think what I mentioned in my post was Doctor was at 1.5 and I was about a half a person. So.
Well, I mean, back in the day, that final boss fight was just really challenging. And so,
and it still is. It still was.
I mean, you needed at least two people there to even say you had a chance.
The fighting chance. And I've seen people do it solo, even on Legend, but
those people are nuts.
You gotta be good. And have a particular loadout that's going to suit it. And that's kind of what I did going into it. I'm like, all right, we need to bring, because I knew how powerful those shields are going into 0 hour. Like that's the hardest part, at least going in for me. That was the big rude awakening. Like, oh, these things hit hard and their shields are really tough. So you got to match their subclass element, or at least be able to muscle through their shields to even stand a chance. So I just
brought. Timed? Are you still timed?
You're still timed. I don't think it's as much. It was 40 minutes, which that might have been the time.
I thought it was like 25 minutes or 20, but maybe I'm just insane. I'd have to look it up, but it was tight, and we ran that so much that first sort of that hangar ad area fight. I'm assuming it's all the same. And so like after the initial section in the old tower, which there's a fight there, you know, you continue to go through, and then there's that giant hangar, and there's that fight in there. Like we nuked that because all your time was spent weaving your way, doing the leap of faith, then getting into Trevor's area and doing that whole thing, which Trevor. That's always exciting.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. So it was P. Matty, myself, and then obviously the Prophetic Swine did it. And first time we didn't get it in time, but I think we got to the boss but we just didn't have enough time to battle it out. I'm like, it's no big deal. We'll do this right after this. We'll be able to clear this, because we spent a good amount of time. Like there were parts of it that I didn't remember at all, and so Swan had to look it up, and so that was wasted time. That he had to actually watch a walkthrough. Okay, we need to go this way. I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. Okay.
I wonder how well I'd remember it if I.
You probably remember it pretty well. It hasn't really changed at all. There was a part that I didn't remember at all. Like there was a quick little shortcut for some reason that I was like, oh, okay, I didn't know. I don't remember this. That might have been Whisper. I don't remember. But anyway, we did both of them, but
gotcha.
Not back to back, but we did Whisper first, and then 0 Hour released a week or two after Whisper was released. So, but it's a lot of fun, and we still have to go back because they've done different. I think that this might have been something in the game where you actually had to get the catalyst to do.
Yeah.
This is how you got the catalyst. Is you went back and
did a different
route.
It
on Legendary, but it's a different route. So we got to go do that, and that looks interesting, and it's on a much tighter window. But they're introducing different perks and elements, kind of like Hawkmoon that you remember. So you could craft out Hawkmoon and get different perks, or you could get a random roll from Xur. But this is a little bit different. So you go back and you do little puzzles in the 0 Hour mission, and they unlock different perks that you can go back to the Enclave on Mars from the Witch Queen and actually recraft the weapon with different perks on it. So Outbreak's a little bit spicier now, and pulse rifles are getting a buff in the final shape. So it should be it's always been a very, very powerful weapon, especially when you compare it, when you pair multiple Outbreaks together, like so in a raid.
My OG Outbreak is a paperweight in the vault then? No,
it's still good. But yeah, it's just as easy to go back and do 0 Hour, get a craftable version and have fun doing that. But it's a lot of fun. So we've been doing that. Some of the newer dungeons, we still need to go back and do some of the older dungeons, like basically between Avarice and Warlords of Ruin, the most recent dungeon. I think it's the most recent dungeon. There's a couple in between. Ghosts of the Deep, I think, is one of them. We got to go back and do that. And I've got some dungeon clears to get done, and obviously some raid clears that I haven't gone back to do. So
yeah. Well, we never finished No Last Wish. We did Vaults of Glass. We did Deepstone Crypt. I think we did King's Fall.
We did, yeah.
When I logged in, I had an emblem that I had beaten it. So I was like, great.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that somebody got us a last room checkpoint. We did all of it up until that the boss encounter, or the encounter where you have to juggle the debuff or to kill you or something. And I don't think we ever beat that. And then I don't know what's in between that and then Oryx, but I do remember us finally beating Oryx and watching him fade into the distance.
Yeah. So, and then we tried the Witch Queen raid, and we got far, but we didn't get to the boss. We didn't get to Rolk. So we got some. Yeah, we got to the...
Where did we get? Oh, the room where you, again, had to juggle the debuff.
Yeah, that was a difficult encounter.
That was.
We got past the... I can't remember. It's the one where you kind of have to guard and push the ogre up to a platform, and you've got different platforms where you use class abilities and then heavies and different.
Oh, are you talking about recently?
Yeah, this is the Root of Nightmares, I think is what it's called.
Because we got further than that back in when it first came out. We beat that one, and then we got into that one where there's the big chasm.
Yeah,
and then
that's the one we got stuck in.
Yeah, so
yeah,
I like that raid. So we mentioned it before, but Bungie does an incredible job with encounters, in my opinion. I mean, just the ones we've mentioned so far is specifically 0 Hour and the Whisper of the Worm mission. Like 0 Hour might be one of my favorite. It's not really a raid. It's not really a dungeon. Missions in any game that has this type of content. Even in any MMO, I'm thinking like, I don't know, it's just for me, it's the perfect blend of puzzle, jumping puzzle, combat, and then Trevor is like the icing on the cake. And then Whisper was a lot of the same. And
then the time element too.
And then, time. So it's just a lot of fun, and their raids are works of art. I really, they're very challenging. There's nothing, even just to beat these raids is, in my opinion, an accomplishment.
Yeah.
Yeah. Vaults of Glass, we had that on a farm.
Yeah, we kind of trivialized that, but and that's the thing. Once you know something, it becomes trivial.
But we never did it on the harder difficulty, did we?
No. It was that is one thing that they kind of need to look at is upping the rewards or making it more enticing to actually want to go and do some of the harder stuff in the game. I think they've done a decent job with the Nightfalls, with making the Grandmaster and even the Master Nightfalls semi-rewarding, where you get at least newer guns and more Ascendant shards and different things like that. But there was never really any, other than getting some adept versions of guns that were like, I'm okay. I'm okay with this Fatebringer that's not adept,
it's not the
whatever
real version.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. It's no hair off my back. But yeah, it's just it's funny. Well, let me talk about what my brother's confusion was, and this is I guess and I definitely saw where he was coming from, and I see where you're coming from, because the game has become like it is in a lot of MMOs that have had time to brew. There's just more stuff. There's more confused. Well, there's just more confusion for a new player. Even for a returning player, it can be a little confusing. And I think some of it, they kind of shot themselves in the foot a little bit, because they have different elements of things. Like there's crafting in the game now that was introduced in the Witch Queen. They've sunsetted weapons. Now they're unsunsetting the sunsetting of the weapons. They've for the longest time, it was basically a looter shooter with real RNG was the only way you were going to get anything. Now there's the crafting element to it, but then does that take away from the fun or the joy of being able to get like an RNG god roll? Like that, when you're just like, oh my God, I finally got that, that's in a level of excitement where you're like, well, if you can just kind of go like, well, I got this, and I guess I'll just craft that. And there's my gun. There's this balance of, I think that they're trying to figure that out, and hopefully they can move forward in one direction or another. And they have a collections thing where you can pull out older guns and equipment and stuff like that. Well, you can't really do that because anything you would want to pull out for the most part is a randomized roll, and you can't pull out randomized rolls from your collection. So what's the point of even having that? So there's all sorts of different mix match. They really just kind of need to streamline that first, I think, is the biggest thing. And then, of course, you've got the expansion issue, which your last expansion was the Witch Queen.
Yes.
There's obviously been Lightfall between that you don't own.
Nope.
And now they've introduced everything up to that point as free to play. Up until the final shape. So even if you were coming back for free, you now technically can go through all of that content, which is great. But what happens after that, I don't know. Like I've looked and I've tried to find the answers to that. I have no idea. Like if you were to go through all of Beyond Light as a free to play character, and then that lapse period ends, do you still get to keep stasis? Which I think you do. Like I think stasis going forward will be free for everyone. And I don't think you will actually have to go through Beyond Light to unlock stasis anymore.
Yeah.
But for Strand, I don't know. Like you probably need to buy Lightfall to get Strand, or you just won't have it. It may not matter. Maybe everyone will just run Prismatic. So I don't really know. There's lots of weird things about the game, but for all that weirdness, I think that they've done a good job leading up to the final shape of trying to get people back and get people excited. The biggest thing that I mentioned, and I showed my brother, I'm like, first thing we need to do is we need to go to the Hall of Champions, because there's a free box of 1810 gear, which is the power. Actually, it's the pinnacle cap. It's the highest cap you can get in the game. So even if you were to do pinnacle reward stuff, like I've done a few things, the gear that drops is still 1810. So like that's the hard cap. Like there's no, and of course you can get artifact power level that's above that, but that's the max.
But you have to buy the battle pass for that too, right?
No, it's free to play. So you can go straight to the Hall. This is the Into the Light expansion with the Onslaught. So you can go straight to the Hall of Champions, which is on your world map, and then you unlock a quest to go talk to Shax, because he's in two different places at the same time. Always. And there's a box of loot which has 1810 gear. Some of it's not bad, like roll wise. Some of it's not great, so you might want to just upgrade your current gear, and ta-da, you're max level. And then you get 3 different weapons, one of them being Thunderlord, the exotic heavy machine gun, because the gift is called like gift to the Thunder Gods or something like that.
Yes.
And then it gives you a random exotic. I think for hunters it was Liar's Handshake, and I think they're all arc based. I think for warlocks it was Getaway Artist, and Titans it's the one for Thunder Crash. I can't remember what it's called.
Me neither, but I've seen it. I've used it
for Superman for the Yeet mode. But it's
so what was his confusion then?
Because I think he hadn't played since Beyond Light, so he hadn't played the Witch Queen, and he got thrown into the first mission on Neptune, which is where Lightfall is, and was trying to figure out why he was there, and he was getting his butt kicked, and I'm like, well, okay, let's hold off a second. I kind of joined him. I'm like, why are you in Neptune? Did you buy Lightfall? And he's like, no, I don't think so. I'm like, okay, because the game will automatically take you to places sometimes. Every new season, the first thing you do when you load up is it takes you to the mission for the first season. Like that's you don't get a choice of going to the tower. You can abort mission or whatever and go to the tower first, but generally I just let it play out and do the mission and see how things roll organically.
Yeah.
But organically for a player that's just kind of doing the normal stuff for normal Destiny players, not organic for a new player or one that's returning. So I probably need to figure that out in some capacity, because otherwise people just get lost, like you probably were, or at least guide people, like say, hey, this is the first. I don't know how you do that. Like, what's the best way to do that? Having a a page on the loading screen. Like, first things first, that's what you need to do.
It's two different problems to solve here, right? The first is, how do you make it so a returning player can figure out what to do and what's happening
to get caught up?
And two is like, what is the actual new player experience? Do you still start out like you did in D1? And then they reverted back to in D2 where you're outside of the wall and the ghost is like, eyes up, guard, the whole soundbite we just did. And then you go through the
I think they introduced the whole new player experience, and it's not a bad one. I think I tried it out on my Titan when they first released it. And it's not bad. That's why they released the Cosmodrome. They brought back the Cosmodrome. And so it takes you through that old experience of the initial D1. Of course, there's no Red War stuff past that, but and that all is pretty good and it's fairly streamlined. However, they always try to get you to go back to do that, even if you're a returning player. Like, that's why you probably got put right in front of a core at the tower, which isn't a bad way to go, actually, because now that because with the Witch Queen, they introduced Void 3.0. That's when, they introduced all the different fragments and stuff that they introduced for stasis.
Oh, yeah.
So they introduced that for Void, and then over time, they've done that for Arc and Solar. So they put you in front of a core to say, okay, you need to go purchase, if you want all your Arc stuff, and they've added a lot, like for a Hunter on Solar, at least, I think maybe, I don't know, I know it's at least on Solar, you actually get a healing grenade if you want it.
Yeah, well,
so they're
did
different
some
things.
Of that. I remember doing that in sometime around after Witch Queen. I don't remember when. Yeah. But I remember purchasing a bunch of that for Solar and for Arc.
For Arc, okay. So you probably have a lot of that stuff.
Right, but that's
kind of why they throw you. Yeah, and she kind of introduces you to, she has a couple of quests, like for exotic gear. I don't remember. Yeah. I think for Warlock, it was like Crown of Tempest and something. I can't remember. But anyway, and then they send you off to Shahan, brah. And
so that's why I've said, like, if this game had a sub model, so this is what, in my opinion, they should do. Big brain Coniff, who's barely, returned to the game. Put a subscription into the game. Make everything that's a previous expansion unlock if you purchase the current expansion. So you let's say someone's like, I want to play Destiny 2. They purchase the final shape. They get everything previous.
Yeah.
Make the subscription optional, like ESO or Fallout 76, but then limit something simple like your vault spaces, or maybe, I hate to say like inventory spaces, but if all these other things were there, and paying a subscription gets you all the dungeons, all the seasons, and then some of those like perks, like double vault space, maybe double inventory space on the inventory screen, not including guns and armor, but like that list of, where your crafting materials go. I don't know how they would work it, but then that way they can then create a new player, returning player experience where, for the new player, you go through that whole thing in the Cosmodrome, talk to Shahan, go talk to Ikora, whatever. But for a returning player, they've come up with this whole like opening mission or anything where you can go talk to Ikora or whomever it would be, and then get like even just a quick history lesson of like what's happened via cutscenes and voiceover and everything. And then from there you can go through the content with, I don't know how they would do it, but it just needs its like own symbol, right? Like maybe they have them, but like if you want to go Beyond Light, go here. If you want to do Witch Queen, go here. Lightfall, go here. And then you can just go through those stories and then streamline the process for pulling out weapons, like you said, or like just the collections, excuse me, and all that other stuff. And then just put this in, you know, a subscription package where you do get all those dungeons, you do get all the passes. I thought there were 2 tiers of the passes. One was like a paid for one, the other's
there's
not.
It's a free track, and then if you buy the season passes, like when I bought Final Shape and I bought the Witch Queen. I don't think I did this for Lightfall, but I did it for the Witch Queen and the Final Shape. I just went ahead and paid $100 so I get a full year. Whether or not I play all the seasons that are included in that, usually I think it's 3. I think for the Final Shape they're doing away with seasons, so it's more going to be episodic because they've got this whole plan for the post. Whatever happens for the Final Shape, like there's different episodes that are going to follow that, and I don't know what their plan is after that. Who knows? Destiny 3 or whatever, I don't know. Hell knows. I may not even play past that, but we'll see. But anyway, I can see your point. Like, I think that might be a very serviceable, and I've always liked that model with the ESO. Like, even if you've missed a couple expansions, like if I wanted to go buy the gold, the Gold Road, I think is the new one coming out.
Yeah, you could buy that by itself.
I could buy that, and then I could play through Necrom as well that I don't own. Like, I think that's the first one that I missed. I basically quit playing after whatchamacallit, the Breton Isle.
Yeah, the High
Isle.
And that's where I think a sub would, like a not mandatory sub would work, is because if you buy the expansion, you get all the mainline expansions story wise. You're gonna have missed the seasons that were in between, all that stuff. But they could then introduce that part into the sub, you know, with the dungeons, like we're saying, like, okay, and if you want to, you could buy the dungeon pack so you wouldn't have to pay a sub. It's just the flexibility there would be nice. And but this is kind of delving more into like the pay model than actual, like,
their pay model is just way out of whack. Like it's you buy the expansions and then you technically buy the season passes, even though they're included in what my overhead cost would be is $100 for a full year, which doesn't seem like a whole lot, but when you throw in all of that plus if you didn't get all that, and that's the thing, like because I know I'm just buying everything because I don't want to get nickeled and dimed down the road by saying, oh, well, if you want to do this dungeon, you got to buy this dungeon pack, or you got to buy this, or you got to.
And the dungeons are really good content,
and
too.
They're awesome. Like, if you can, especially if you have a good, solid fire team and you just go in and do some dungeons, it's fun. They're not particularly short. They can be. You can put them on farm mode, maybe except for, a few, but but they're fun, and they're fairly lengthy, and rewards are generally pretty good, depending on the dungeon. But, I don't know. I think that your idea of kind of going to more ESOs, and I guess Final Fantasies too, if you really think about it, just where if you buy the new expansion, you get everything previous, and just stick with that going forward. You don't need even to make it free to play. Like, just take that out completely. Just you got to buy the game in some capacity.
Yeah,
but when
that's
you do,
a good point.
But when you do, you get all this stuff, And then if you want to keep up with the Joneses, if you want to, like we did for years in ESO, and which were, it was almost hard to go back and play ESO without Plus. If you were to, keep on with Destiny in a very serious manner, you would probably pick up a sub. And if you wanted to take a break, you just cancel the sub, but at least you would own that stuff, and you could just kind of let it go on from there. And if you wanted to go back, you just pick up the sub again and just go from there. So
because with ESO, like, I think you get crowns, which you can use to buy whatever you want.
And they also have the Eververse store, which is another whole can of worms. So that's another model they could do. They could say, well, okay, if you buy a sub, you get silver, which is their crown.
Yeah,
version.
you get so much of it a month. You get access to all the
not
dungeons.
A whole lot, like 500 silver a month or something, or 1,000 if they're feeling generous, or just do away with that altogether. But I mean, I like that there's that option of just cosmetic stuff and things that you can buy for silver. And I don't think necessarily everything has to be earnable in game, because some people just can't do that, and they maybe want their weapon to look a little more interesting, or their piece of armor to look a little more interesting than what it is, and don't mind paying a few $10 for a cosmetic or something. That's just more money in their pocket, so be it. But if they want to stack up their silver that they get over months and just say, okay, I'm gonna buy this for the sub, then let them have it. So I don't know. But anyway, all of that aside, I think that the game's and all this is really hinging on the fact that the final shape is going to be good. So who knows? I know that Nathan Fillion has been signed on board to do the voiceover for Cade, who is back in some capacity. I guess everyone assumes that he's basically a ghost or some capacity living. I mean, an exo ghost of living inside of the Traveler. So
exos do get rebooted, and
and look at Banshee. Maybe
they find his consciousness somewhere on a flash drive and they plug it into another exo.
Yeah.
I don't think it quite works like that, but
well, I mean, there's lots of talk about where Rasputin is probably coming back in some capacity as an actual exo.
That would be exciting.
Would be pretty cool.
Yeah, so I guess the summary of this as we wrap this episode up is that the current state of Destiny 2 is all right, but it is especially confusing if you are a returning player, and then maybe slightly less so a new player. Just 'cause it's like trying to remove the pay model and stuff out of the equation, but a new player, I mean, like, they just want to play this game and see. They're going to have to buy all these expansions plus all these dungeons. It's ridiculous. And so that's unfortunate. I'm really not sure how it works for me because I bought everything up through Witch Queen, everything on Xbox. I've got Galahorn, which I thought was only an anniversary exclusive.
I thought that you got it because that was a Ghost of Avarice dungeon thing from what I remember. There was a 30th anniversry.
Right, but you had to buy it to get access to it, I thought. I equipped it. I didn't fire it, but maybe you got to pay for the rounds. No. Yeah, you got to pay for the heavy ammo. Each rocket. It's I'm pretty sure that you got it because you wouldn't have been able to get into that dungeon if you hadn't. No, I know I bought it. I'm just saying I don't know if.
Bought it from.
I didn't buy it on Steam.
Yeah, because that's something that wouldn't transfer over. That wasn't free included content, at least with. See, that's the thing. It's like I don't. It
just doesn't make sense. Yeah, that is kind of the takeaway. Is
it doesn't
the game content is finally back in a good place? I think after Lightfall, based on what you, P. Matty Swine, Doctor, have been talking about. But these underlying issues are really just mechanical or business model-y things. They're just weird, and it's hard to wrap your mind around. And
they're all competing with one another, and as a consumer, if we were to join up and say, let's go do this, and then you get the red bar underneath this, every member of the fire team. Yeah. It's like, well, really?
Yeah.
So if they can remove that element in some way that is fair, I think, for both them and the consumer, I think that's probably the way they need to go. And I don't know how you do that, but I think our idea, if you're listening, Bungie, is the best way to go. So
I just
go to a retroactive expansion. Everything if you buy the new expansion, everything previous is you own. Including dungeons, and then going forward, put in this subscription model to where if you want to do dungeons or something, you got to be a sub, or you can buy it separately if you want, and that's what ESO does, and I think that's a fair handshake. To be honest, so
people will claim pay to win.
People want free stuff all the time. People want, but it's not how the world works. So you gotta, if you want stuff, you gotta either pay for it or, I don't know. So we'll see. We'll see what happens in the future, but maybe by whenever Destiny 3 comes out, or maybe whatever this reiteration of Destiny 2 after the final shape, because it's going to have to change in some capacity because this whole saga is ending. So,
yep.
We'll see.
We shall see. Well, I think that's going to do it for this episode. I believe we might hold off because of the whole housing and on and off episodes for the summer situation. We might hold off on our third of these trio of Destiny episodes until the final shape comes out, because I think we need to be able to see what that's going to be to then have a discussion on where they could take Destiny, because really that's going to ultimately be a narrative conversation more than mechanically. I've always said it'd be great if there were 3 light classes, 3 dark classes, and then you could mix and match them in the next game or something. I don't know how that would work.
Now you can.
And now
except there's just 3 light and 2 dark, with the third being the mix and match. So we'll see how Prismatic works. It looks very, very interesting, and it looks kooky and fun. So I don't know how kooky and fun, or if it will just feel overpowered or feel a little lackluster compared to a singular subclass. If it will be that jack of all trades that sometimes you fall into at an MMO, where you're like, hey, you can do a lot, but you're not really good at one particular thing in particular. So sorry.
I guess we'll see.
The curse of the bard is what is referred to in TNT.
Hey, my bard by the end was very powerful in Baldur's Gate 3.
Yeah. It just depends on.
Might be because of some story decisions that I may have made that you'll see when you get there, Shiloh, someday.
Yeah.
Almost have to restart at this point.
Yeah, I really am. I'm going to have to just completely restart the game.
I've been craving CRPGs again, believe it or not. But
yeah, I'm thinking at this point, really, realistically, it'd probably be somewhere in the fall, maybe late summer. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. I'm gonna need I need a good chunk of time, but so maybe this time in the summer. I know going to Florida with the family, but maybe I'll have some time. Then I can just jump back into BG3 when I'm not.
Just do it on the easiest difficulty, so you can just go through story stuff.
Yeah, then I guess I could always ramp it up, and if it were just getting too easy, but we'll see.
Something tells me it won't be. But
no,
some of those fights and
especially down
Act
the
2
road
were tough. But yeah, that's going to do it for this episode. I believe next episode is a board game episode if Jordan's available. It's also going to be Memorial Day weekend, so that may be, who knows what's going to happen. I know I am free at this time of day when we record, which is at night on a Sunday. So we'll see.
Well, if we don't do that, we can just jump back in or not. But yeah, when we'll have stuff to talk about. We can. I'll played at least a decent chunk of Hellblade 2 by then. And
same here. I believe
just be still grinding on Destiny 2 probably. So
yes, sir. All right. Well, listener, thank you for, as always, listening to the show, giving feedback on Discord, also just being friends of the show and just hanging out with us when we get a chance to. We hope you enjoyed it, and we will talk to you in the next episode. Peace.
Later. Questing the Multiverse is brought to you in part by Coniff Productions, Hal's Wood Designs, and Joel Crawford. To follow along with our adventures, please follow us on Twitter at QtM Podcast and consider joining our Discord, the link of which can be found in the show notes or in our Twitter bio. Want your questions or comments read on the show? Email us at questingthemultiverse@gmail.com. Finally, if you enjoyed this episode, please consider giving us a review or a follow wherever you listen to podcasts. Thank you for listening.